Hello everybody, and welcome back to Kino's Kino, our weekly reviews of the 2017 adaptation of Kino's Journey. And for the first time since the first episode, I can say I enjoyed an episode of this new Kino's Journey without any qualifications.
Yeah, this episode was pretty Kino.
Yes, episode 5, Country of Liars. This is actually a two-story episode, but both relate to this idea that the country is lying in some way. With the first story, which is the land of travelers, Kino visits this country who have memorialized their founder, who was a traveler, and his legacy by keeping and historically preserving all of his artifacts and possessions, but they are glorifying artifacts which are not actually as great as they are saying they are. Like a cheap knife from another country they're saying was his main knife that he used to fight, and then they mistake a shovel used for shoveling poop for a shovel where he used to garden. So I don't know if they're intentionally lying to travelers about the legacy of their president, but clearly there has been a lie told about what these things were used for, and that has been misinformed, that has been spread down through the populace as incorrect legacy. It is a reflection of how some countries, when they look back at their past, they tend to glorify it, even things that were otherwise not very impressive. They tend to glaze over the unsavory, unromantic parts and instead pedestalize the nostalgic and the romantic
basically
version of events.
Make their history sound like far more valuable than it actually was.
Yeah, they romanticize the past. I don't know if exactly is a lie, but definitely a lie was told some point down the line in terms of like what actually happened, or how this actually was. The key part of the story, though, to me, was when they meet the motorrad that the president had ridden on, and just how sad it was that it has been here for decades and had never been ridden. And they empathize with the motorrad, but they say they can't take it because it's not theirs to take, and they don't want to get in trouble with the country. But then later, in a reflection of Kino's own origins, she talks to a young boy and encourages him to go speak with the motorrad and then see what it tells him, and then maybe they can go on a journey together. That's the implication. Kino doesn't say, "Yeah, little boy, you can become a traveler." She says, "I don't know, but there are many different ways of becoming a traveler. I suggest talking to that motorrad in the museum. It can talk, and it can tell you some things. Who knows?" It was a really cool little story. It hints at Kino's past, and it shows her doing a kind thing for that little boy, and for that motorrad. Like, she herself is not going to get in trouble with the country, but, knowing her own little anarchist, I don't know if that's quite the right word, rebellious origins in terms of, like, how she escaped her country, she's giving a little nudge to this boy. And I think that's pretty cool of her.
Yeah.
The main story and the actual Country of Liars is very interesting because it was not what I had expected. I was expecting a place where everyone was just lying to each other all the time.
And then there was going to be some killings, and Kino gets played, so they have to go kill something.
No, but it's a lot more interesting than that. So, in this country, there was a revolution that took place in which the royal family was executed. Before that, one of the royal guards was meeting with the princess of that royal family, and he didn't know she was the princess at the time. And she was trying to disguise herself as an ordinary farm girl in order to extract information from him about the rebellion. So they fell in love with each other, but the soldier, he went, and when the rebellion happened, they had to execute the royal family, and only then did he realize, oh, the woman I loved was the princess, and that threw him into despair. And it kind of broke his mind. So, in order to ease his pain, they had a doctor tell him, your love went away somewhere. she's traveling in another country. One day she might return. And so now, every day, he goes out to the gates of the country and to ask travelers, like, have they seen his love while on their travelers? Or to see, like, oh, maybe she's finally returned. So that's the lie that the people of this country are telling him. But this guy, he has a maid, a house servant, who came to the country shortly after the rebellion. It turns out this maid is actually that princess, because the princess and her family escaped the country before the rebellion, because they found out about it from him. And then they replaced themselves with doppelgangers who died in their place. So she didn't actually die. And then she left her parents, wherever they are, to go on the road as a traveler and then eventually return to the country. When she returned to the country, the guy said that, yes, I'll be happy to have you until she returns. Implying to her that he's so far gone that he doesn't even recognize her. But to her, that's okay, because she knows that he loves her from the bottom of his heart and will always wait for her, and she finds that romantic. So she's perfectly happy just being able to live with him and just knowing how much he loves her, even if he doesn't realize she is the woman that he loves. So that's the lie that she's telling him. She actually told him 2 lies. Before, when they were first courting each other, she lied to him about who she really was.
This episode is just a boat full of lies.
Yeah, now she's lying to him about who she really is too. But the guy is actually lying to her, as we find out at the end of the episode, that he is fully aware of who she is. He knows that she's his love. But he is perpetuating this act in order to keep her safe. Because if he stopped going to the gate and waiting for her to return, people would get suspicious and it would throw the country back in disarray. Because clearly the country will still want to call for her head. You know, maybe his best friends would be like, okay, we're sympathetic.
Yeah.
We won't do anything.
And they aren't allowed to leave the country. So.
Yeah, they aren't allowed to leave the country either. So they can't leave the country and just be happy together. They have to stay in the country in order to live. But actually, for leaving the country, she might be executed just for that, princess or not. So they have to keep her identity hidden. So he has to keep doing this performative act of going to the gate and asking travelers if they've seen her love, just so that people can recognize that, oh, he's still doing that. The reason he's lying to her is also because the status quo is just working well for them right now. Because it would compromise things if, you know, he was open that, yes, he knows that she's his love. Because then that would affect how they behave towards one another, and people could get suspicious of that.
Yeah.
So it's a very precarious balance that these lies have built. But through the performative actions of this guy and this princess, they are keeping the status quo maintained. They're keeping the peace in this country. And they are satisfying each other's love for one another. They're both getting what they want. And it might not be an ideal situation for a lot of people, but for these people, it actually is.
Yeah, they managed to find happiness.
Yeah. So I really enjoy this story. It was really interesting and more clever than I expected the country of liars to be. It is a rom-com circle of lies, but it's a very interesting one in terms of, the relationship between these two lovers. The lie is what is keeping this country together, even.
The power of lies.
It is what's keeping this country peaceful. And they're made peace and are happy with that. It's really cool. Now, most people I've seen really enjoy this episode and think, yes, this is Kino back to form. The one exception is Gabriella Aikens, who reviews Kino's Journey for ANN, who gave this the lowest episode grade of any of them so far. And said,
she?
Yeah.
Lower than, like the traveling country?
Yes, lower than all previous episodes so far.
How?
Well, according to her understanding of human nature, this isn't the way humans behave. And I would disagree with that, having watched the episode myself, because the people in Kino's journey don't always behave rationally, even by the standards of their country. Land of Adults, do any of those people act actually rationally?
I don't know what you're talking about, Sid. Everyone kills their children
after violating the rules.
Yeah.
And they're so nonchalant about it. They don't feel anything at all. Clearly. That's very human of them.
Let's all have fun and stab this child, guys. Yay, we stabbed that traveler. Let's go watch and laugh at his dead body.
Yeah, and there are more episodes like that depict people who are not really supposed to be real human beings, like more so than exaggerations of ideas.
Like the people who go and kill those Native Americans for fun every year.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I think that if you're trying to get, I want to see real human behaviors reflected, well, actually, I think this episode does reflect an aspect of humanity, an aspect of, hey, I want to preserve the status quo because this is keeping things great, and I'm happy to preserve the status quo because that's making everyone around me happy. I think that is a very human thing. I think there are people who can find happiness in the fact that they can't directly have something, even. Because here, their happiness is in the fact that they know that they're making each other happy. That's how it's working out for them. I think that's also what makes it work as a story, is the fact that it's a very precarious system of balances that these lies create. If one of the lies was exposed, it would just make a lot of people unhappy. It would cause chaos in the country. It would cause tension. They need to keep these lies. You could argue, why don't they just tell some people so they can live happily? Why doesn't the princess make a deal to let them live? But we can see established from the rules that, for one thing, if they went out of their way to kill off the royal family, it's very clear that they don't just want them out of power. They want to kill them.
Yeah.
If they knew that the princess was alive, they would not only try and kill her, they would also, try to hunt down her parents, the rest of her family.
That wouldn't be good.
Yeah. Just because the guy's friends feel sorry for him doesn't mean that they are going to be apologetic for the princess.
That one group of people who were crying that were tied to Kino are not every single person in the
those country. Are just that one guy's friends. And the country isn't just that one guy's friends. We don't know how the other factions in this country would feel. And if they were to expose their relationship, that would put them in danger.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why they have to perpetuate the lie makes sense. Why they have to keep the lie from each other in order to more flawlessly communicate this performative behavior and make it seem genuine feels completely believable too. I get it. I totally understand why they're doing it. And I think it's really fascinating that they find happiness in this performative action. And I do think that is something that people do. I think people perform for other people, behave in a way that they know that that other people want them to in order to keep them happy. And that makes them happy knowing that they're happy. It's not every person, but that is some people. I think that is an aspect of some human beings. I think it would be wrong to dismiss that and say that, that isn't an element of human behavior. Human behavior is very multifaceted. And this is definitely an exaggerated interpretation of things that people can do.
But it's not like it's the first exaggerated thing in Kino's journey either.
Yeah, it's not incongruous from what we saw from the original show in terms of how people behaved. It is still very much in line with that. And I totally bought it. I thought it was a very charming story. It was a very feel-good story. Like, can we just think about that? Like, they're not feeling bad. The reason why the story works, it would be one thing if they were, not satisfied and they were, feeling sorry for how the situation was. But they're not. They're totally happy with it. It is messed up. The princess is I'm just gonna let my guy be mentally insane. Both she and the townspeople are this guy is going to be mentally insane, but that's okay. I don't mind. But at the same time, if you think that someone has lost their mind or has gone off the deep end like that, like your grandparents have Alzheimer's or something, if you're gonna just try and make them as happy as you can, even if they are asking for things or waiting for people who won't ever come back, So they don't know how deep this guy's mental condition is, or even, because she assumedly has a similar face to how she looked before, right? So,
yeah, like, I don't think...
If he said that he didn't recognize her, then she has every right to believe that he is, like, not mentally sound anymore.
Like, I think the only thing they mentioned about the princess beforehand was that she had long hair, which...
Yeah, she has shorter hair now.
She cut her hair.
Yeah.
Most people could probably realize, like, who a person is if they have a haircut. It's not hard.
So, there is some element that's messed up. Oh, they're toying with this mentally broken guy's emotions, but at the same time, yeah, I mean, I get why they're doing it. I get for the sake of, like, not letting him lose hope and committing suicide. They're like, yeah, your lover is dead. And I get why she's like, because she just wants to be beside him, and because she thinks he doesn't recognize her, she's like, I'm going to live with you, and I'm going to wait until your lover returns, even though, she is his lover. So I get them, and I get why he's doing it, because he's doing it to protect her. And also keep the country stable, because he doesn't want to cause problems for anyone. They can live their lives happily together, and the country can stay peaceful. That's great. There's a positive, happy ending to the story.
One thing I'm wondering about the country, though, is why don't they let people leave?
I don't know. It's just a rule. It's just an arbitrary rule.
You'd think that once they, like, actually did a revolution, they'd actually let people go in and out of the country.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an arbitrary rule. We don't know how this country is run. I mean, when I think about revolution where the monarchy is decapitated, I think of the French Revolution, so who knows? Yeah. Maybe the country is not totally run the best, but at the same thing, there are weird rules, but at the same time, it's relatively peaceful right now, so why rock the boat? I guess we're all happy with how the way things are. That's fine. We're cool with it. We're happy. And they tell Kino just because, Kino is a traveler. So, like, she's not going to tell anyone. They can tell.
Yeah. One thing I guess I could think about, a reason why they don't let people leave, is that any remnants of supporters for the royal family, if they left the country, they could possibly gather enough forces to, like, take over again.
Yeah. I don't know. The point is, they can't tell anyone else in the country the truth. That's why this is the country of liars. It's because, in regards to this situation, no one can tell each other the truth. But they can tell Kino the truth, because Kino is an outsider. That's why they do it. Because they want her to know the truth. Just for, her sake. So I thought it was a really charming story. I don't understand the criticisms of it by certain people. Yes, this episode was Kino. This is a Kino episode of Kino's Journey. Finally. Totally satisfied and excited by it. I really like the story. Finally, a story with a happy ending. A story that... There was no bloodshed. It did not have to involve Kino hurting someone or taking over a country or causing another country harm or violating its rights. It's just Kino learning an interesting story and thinking, yeah, that's cool. I like those stories. I like those stories of Kino's story. I'm glad there was one of them.
I guess readers don't just like the super violent stories.
Yeah. I guess there are going to be some more of these kind of stories, and I'm so glad that there are.
Did they say what the next episode was?
I mean, they did, but I don't remember what the title is. Land of Wind or something? I don't know.
Land of Wind, okay.
I was surprised that they're not doing Land of Adults, considering they foreshadowed Kino's backstory so heavily in this episode.
Yeah. I mean, next episode is going to be episode 6, right?
Yeah. And
so it's weird putting Land of Adults past the halfway point.
Yeah. Interesting. Maybe they're saving it for the finale? I don't know.
Or penultimate episode? That would be a weird finale.
I mean, it'd be weird if they did the finale of the first season as the finale of this season. So, I don't know.
Maybe they will? Who knows?
I guess we'll see. But, yeah, I think we're both in agreement. This was a Kino episode. This was
totally
the best episode so far.
Yeah, it was just good. It was great. Kino.
Yep. That's all you have to say about it?
I mean, you pretty much summed up my points.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel so good to have an episode of Kino's Journey, I had no problems with it all. And when I read the criticisms other people have, I'm like, no, I don't agree with those at all. So I'm like, yes, finally, a question where I can unequivocally say this was good, this was Kino. So I guess we're 2 for 5 then, though.
Maybe the others will be good.
Hopefully. I mean, there's still time for it to turn itself around. Maybe the rest of the episodes will be Kino.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can hope.
We can hope. And I hope you in the audience will hope alongside us.